Oh, and sorry, my video person just told me I had to hold off there for a second. But again, I'm Jennifer with Artistic Painting Studio, and I'm excited to be back here again with Hometalk Live and share another project with you guys. To start with, I would love for everybody to share with us where you guys are tuning in from. That would be awesome. And as you guys are starting to tune in and let us know where everybody is from, I'm going to go ahead and get started with my project. So today I'm going to share with you guys how to do a foil project as well as stencil. And the surface that I'm working on is this big wooden cross. So this is going to be the project that we're going to work on. And they're just a wooden cross. It's a thin piece of wood. And I'm one who loves, or I shouldn't say loves, but I'm one who believes firmly in priming everything. So this is a brand new piece of wood. It's never been painted before. And I'm going to start with priming. And as I get everything out, I also want to mention that Hometalk is going to have a giveaway today. So if you will share with us where you would put this cross in your home, that will be the question. And like I said, I'm one who feels everything has to be primed. So I'm going to just use my favorite primer, which is XIM. And I'm just using a foam roller here. And I thought I had the lid off on this, so hold on just a second. Now I like using the real dense foam. It's a high density so that they just roll a little bit smoother. And I'm just going to pick up a little bit of the primer and get this worked into my roller. And I just want to introduce you to who's all here. Andy is behind the camera, so she's hopefully keeping me focused on here and on the project. And my son Tyler is here to help me with the questions that are coming over. So Tyler, where is everybody tuning in from?
We got a couple people from Canada, Arkansas, Texas, Kentucky, Burr from Michigan.
Awesome.
A lot of living rooms.
Awesome, that's great. I'm glad everybody can join us this afternoon. And as you can see, this is going pretty quickly. I am just putting on one coat of the primer. And no matter what I put on here, whether I skip the primer and gone straight to paint, or like I am doing the primer, because it's brand new wood that's never been painted before, it's going to raise the grain. So once this dries, it's going to be slightly rough again. And at that point, we'll just do a light sanding. So it didn't matter which direction I had gone, but like I said, I'm one who likes to prime everything. Now, as well as doing the top of it, I would also be doing the sides, but we're going to go ahead and get to the one that I've already got primed. And I'll show you what a little system I did come up with for getting the paint on here pretty easy. So once it's completely dried, I just grab some 220 grit sandpaper, and then it's not too bad, but you'll just feel that there's just a slight roughness to it. So you're just going to do a real light sanding, wipe your surface down, and you'll be ready to go again. But like I said, no matter if I had skipped the primer and gone straight to paint, it was still going to raise the grain. So the next step on this project is I'm going to use the DIY paint by Debbie's Design Diary, and I'm using a color called Little Black Dress. And this dries almost solid black. And I'm one who doesn't like to wash the rollers very often, so I have a tendency to roll them in bags, and that way they're ready for me on my next project without having to wash them, especially if I know I'm going to use that same color the same day, and sometimes even maybe the next day. So I'm just using the paint tray here to get the paint distributed into the roller really well. And I found it was easiest to go ahead and hit the edges of this first. And as I'm hitting the edges, the paint's kind of gathering on the top edge, and I don't want that ridge to dry. So I'm just going to quickly roll over that and smooth it out. But anytime you're painting a full complete surface like this, it's kind of hard to get all the edges and everything without getting too messy, but we'll see how well I do on this. So is there any questions so far, Tyler, of anybody tuning in?
Do you have a printable list of how, like, all the steps for the project?
Yes, not only is it on Hometalk, but Hometalk will be posting my instructions for the entire project, and it lists all the different materials used, as well as you'll be able to find complete step-by-step also on my blog, which is Studio J Renee, and I believe Hometalk will also be posting that as well, so all the information will be available.
And where do you find the crosses?
The crosses are also available on my website. So there's a special page on my website for the Hometalk projects where all the different materials that we're using are on that page so that you can find everything at once. I also want to tell you one of the reasons why I did choose the DIY paint is because you can see how nice that covered in one coat, and to me that's huge. I like being able to move through a project pretty quickly, so one coat is really nice. Now I'm not going to say every different paint that they have is going to give us full opaque coverage in one layer, but the black sure did, so that was great to start with. So this will have to completely dry, and then we'll be moving on to the next part of our project. So I have a nice dry one here to get started on. The next thing that I want to do is talk to you about working with the foils and the next part of this project. Working with foils, we have to have a foil adhesive on the surface, and the foil adhesive creates a really strong tack that the foils release to. And we're using my product called foil adhesive, and it's under my own brand called Artsyville. And it dries to a firm tack, and it takes somewhere between 30 to 60 minutes to dry to get to that firm tack, but it really depends on your environment, and I know it's getting really cold right now, so it might take a little bit longer for things to dry. So just make sure that you're at that firm tack before you go forward. And like I said, it has to take at least 30 to 60 minutes to get there, but it doesn't matter how long you leave it. So let's say I'm working on this project and I put the foil adhesive down, and time gets away from me and I can't get back to finish it. I can't get back to actually releasing the foil. You don't have to worry. It's never going to dry beyond that firm tack, so it doesn't matter if it's there for 4 hours, 6 hours, a day or 2 weeks. I've actually left it on something before and came back a month later and still transferred a foil. So the foil adhesive looks kind of milky white right out of the jar. It comes in a lot of different sizes. I have it all the way down to like a 4-ounce jar. We have it available in 10-ounce quarts and also gallons. So depending on your project, whether it be small or large, we've got definitely a different size for you. So I'm just going to load my roller once again, and yes, I'm being awfully bad. I'm dipping right out of the containers. And okay, so you can definitely tell I have all kinds of ways of loading my rollers. This is the back of a foam plate, but it works really good. And then when you see this going on, you can see that it's milky white, and which is nice because you can tell exactly where the product is going. And you don't have to guess, but I always tell everybody, make sure you have 100% coverage, because if you actually miss a spot, that just means there's not going to be any foil whatsoever that will transfer there. So I'm just going back and kind of rolling over to lay the product down a little bit flatter, and seems to be a couple of extra little goodies in there, which I'll take out with my finger. And then we'll just leave this aside to dry. And I'm going to be good and rebag that one just because it's sticky and I don't want it to get stuck to anything. So earlier today, I went ahead and put the adhesive down on a couple of the crosses so I could show you guys this process and not have to wait for things to dry. This has been on here for at least probably an hour or two, and I'm just going to touch it, and hopefully you can hear that. That's what's called a firm tack, so it kind of makes a distinctive noise. But like I said, this is not going to dry beyond that firm tack, so it'll always be sticky. I want to talk to you guys just a little bit about foils and what they are. The foils come in quite a few different size rolls, everything from a small roll that's only 25 feet long up to these come double the width and up to 200 linear feet. So depending on your project, you know, how much foil you need, we have them in quite a few different sizes. But the foil is actually a metallization on the back of cellophane. So the side that I've got facing you right now is actually the metallization that will be transferring to the surface. And I gotta make sure I don't get this stuck in there. And the side that you always want facing you is the shiny side. So I always try to remind everybody the shiny side is either up or facing you, because this is the actual cellophane side. It's the side, it's what you're gonna see in the end. This will be the bright shiny silver, but this is actually the cellophane. So you wanna make sure when you're getting ready to do any kind of a foil transfer that you make sure, like I am here, that the shiny side is facing me. Now I've cut a piece that's large enough to cover the whole project. So I'm just gonna lay this down over the cross. And I like to just start with a terry rag and just rub the back of the foil, which is the cellophane. And this way you can actually see the cross. And it gets the foil laid down and laid down pretty smooth. If there's any little areas that are like bubbles, you can always lift it up and just burp those out. I don't mind those imperfections, and that's what I think is just part of the fun of working with foils to begin with, is that you just kind of have to embrace the fact that there's always going to be some kind of imperfection with working with them, and I refer to them as features, not flaws, okay? So there's never going to be anything perfect with them. But the first thing I always like to do is just rub with a terry rag, and I'm rubbing straight up and down. I'm not going to start making circular motions or going in a whole bunch of different directions, because that motion you make will actually telegraph to the surface. So I'm going to rub real hard with the terry rag to start with and see what kind of a transfer that I'm getting. And I think Andy's getting in here nice and close for you. You can see the foil, hopefully that, you can see my hand through there, that's transferred a lot of the silver metallization, but not all of it. So I can put this back and I can scrub harder with the terry rag, or I can actually go to my favorite little scrub brush. And the bristles on here are pretty stiff, but they work great for scrubbing the foil. So excuse the noise. This is a little bit noisier than the terry rag. But again, I want to continue to scrub in a straight up and down motion. And I always like to peek and make sure that I'm happy with the transfer before I completely remove. So if I look underneath here, then I'm starting to get almost 100% of the foil that's actually transferring, which is awesome. But it allows you to have a chance to peek, and if you put the foil right back down, any part of the metallization that hasn't transferred should hopefully go right back to where there's adhesive still. So I could always go back and again even scrub a little bit more in that one area. And I'm going to continue to scrub and try to get a full transfer here. And while I'm doing that, Tyler, are there any other questions?
Someone asked, what was the adhesive, the adhesive thing that joined it all late?
Oh, the foil adhesive is the product. It's like a two-part thing when you're doing any kind of a foil finish. You have to have the foil adhesive, which creates the tack that releases the metallization off the back of the foils. So if you start from the beginning, I'm sure that'll be answered even better. But the foil adhesive is really important to getting a great transfer. Okay, so I think...
Jennifer, real quickly, can you tell us again what it is that you're doing?
A foil finish?
Across?
Oh, a cross?
You're doing a foil finish on a cross?
I'm doing a foil finish on a cross.
Okay.
So this has given me almost 100% coverage, not quite 100%. And when I talked about how you've got to embrace the flaws, there's an area here where you can kind of see where the foil had maybe the bubbles to begin with. My cross even has a couple of little imperfections where the foil's just not transferring there because there's a little bit of who knows what stuck on there, okay? But that's just part of the foils themselves. That, like I said, they're not perfect. So this is just what I call a smooth transfer finish. That we laid it down, we laid it on there nice and smooth, and just scrubbed the back of the foil. There's quite a few different ways to actually transfer foil. So I'm going to show you another way that's a technique that is pouncing. So I'm going to grab another one of the crosses that has already been, again, this one has the foil adhesive on it, so it's tacky and ready to go. And this time, I'm going to crinkle the foil up and create a ball, and this is the the back side of it where the metallization is on. So I'm making sure that shiny side is all on the inside. If by chance you get this stuck, the shiny side stuck to the adhesive, it sticks pretty good, so you want to be careful about that. And this is definitely a noisier technique, but you just pounce it onto the surface. And create as much coverage as you want. When you do a pounce finish like this, it'll never give you as much coverage as scrubbing the back of foil will, but it gives you a little bit different look. And it gives you an option to, do things a little bit different.
Why do you paint it black?
What was that?
Why do you paint it black?
I painted it black on purpose because I wanted the depth, and I also wanted the black to be coming through. And when you see the final crosses that I've done, you'll see why I picked the black finish. Using a strong contrast with your foils like I have, black and silver, all those imperfections or features as I refer to them, show a whole lot more. If you want to try to get as perfect as a foil release as you possibly can, then you're going to want to pick a base coat that would be a gray, a real soft gray, or even do it on a metallic silver. So you could use like Modern Masters metallic silver paint and then transfer the foil. But I was looking for contrast, so yeah, I've definitely gone about as strong as you can. Great question, guys.
A lot of people like that look a lot.
Wow. Thank you. It is pretty cool. I'm going to pull out both samples so you can see how different they can be. Can count a little bit more here. Like I said, you can continue to pounce and create as much coverage as you want. And then let me grab this one again. So when I show you guys both of these, hopefully you can see how different they are in their look. But even with the first one that I did, which is the smooth transfer technique, you can still see some of the black peeking through. And you know, to me, that's part of the finish. That's what I've created with the black as part of it. But when you pounce, you can see how much less transfer you're going to get. So you want to pick your base coat and your foil colors depending on the actual, you know, finish that you're trying to achieve in the end. But that's how easy to create a foil finish is. It's not a difficult process whatsoever.
Hey, do you do anything after you're done transferring?
It depends on the project and how well of a transfer that you actually have received. So the one that I've done with the smooth technique here, if I fill this, I would say that there's almost like 0 tack left. And I would be okay considering this is a cross, it's going to hang on a wall. It's not a piece of furniture, so I would be okay just leaving it alone. This one here that I only pounced on, there's still a lot of tack. So yes, you would want to seal this one. Now, still considering it's a piece that I'm just going to hang on the wall, I could possibly get away with not sealing it. But if you're doing a piece of furniture, you're doing cabinetry or anything like that, you definitely want to seal it because not only is it still like a vulnerable type of surface, but you'll have that stickiness to it. I always tell everybody, make sure you test any top coats that you are planning to use, and you can also seal it with even a layer of glaze. But you guys see how shiny and bright the foils actually achieve as a finish. So you want to make sure that you're actually doing like a little test piece, maybe on a piece of molding or just on something where you can, once you've transferred the foil, test all the different top coats that you have and make sure that you're really happy with the finish. I have used some where I thought they were going to be a high enough sheen and they start to actually kill or lower the sheen, flatten it out a little bit. I actually tried a glaze one time that completely flattened out the foils. So you want to test them before you actually use them on your project. Great questions, guys. Okay, so from here, once your foil is transferred, we can go to the next step. There's nothing to wait for it to dry. And now I've got actually kind of gold fingers here, which is nice because many of the things that you work on when you're working on projects, you're always waiting for a layer to dry, waiting for a layer to dry. So it's nice when you do a foil finish that at this point we can just go forward and go into the stenciling on this. And I think I dropped everything here. I did. So any other questions, Ty?
Someone asked, do you think if they did copper paint first and then black over the top with the foil pounce, would it look like a hammered copper metal?
If you wanted to do something that was like a hammered metal look, I have a tendency to go to like a dark brown color first, transfer a copper foil, and then I'd probably do a glaze technique over the top of it. And that would give you more of like a hammered metal. The best hammered metal is using my rollers and using the ostrich print. So you'll have to go check out my videos and see how to do that. But that's like the best way to create a hammered metal look. So I'm going to position at the top of the cross because I feel that's your focal point and the most important area to make sure that you have the stencil positioned. So Tyler's being really good at reminding me that don't forget that we're doing the giveaway, and please to enter the giveaway, just write a comment about where you would hang this cross in your home. And I'm going to just do the stenciling, show you guys how to stencil the way that I love to do it. And this is a real traditional technique. Now, I have a little bit of spray adhesive on the back of the stencil, so you can see that it's kind of sticking there, as well as I use some tape to keep it in position. And again, I'm going to use the little black dress paint by DIY Paints. I like working with this product for the fact that it does opaque pretty quickly, so that's why my main choice of using this. And I'm just putting the paint out onto a foam plate, and I'm sure I've poured out way more than I need. And then I just have some paper towels that I'm going to offload, and I think Tyler's got another question for me.
Just quickly tell them like what the cross is made of and where they can find it again.
The crosses are just a wooden cross, and you can find them on my website. So when you go onto my website, hover over the shop button, and there should be a tab to shop for the Hometalk project. So everything is listed on there. Okay, so we're going to do what's called a dry brush technique. I'm going to pick up a little bit of paint, and hopefully Andy can get in here close. And I'm just working over to the side of the big puddle that I have and working the paint into the brush. And then I'm going to go over to this paper towel, and I'm going to do what seems like take all of it off. But that is how you create a dry brush. And it's important to have a dry brush, otherwise you could bleed underneath the stencil. I've found that sometimes it's easiest to do a pounce technique, especially over metallics for some reason. And like you're seeing here, because you're doing a dry brush, it doesn't take you too far before you have to reload. The other technique you can do is a swirling motion, which is a little bit softer as far as the finish. Normally if you're pouncing, you get a little bit more texture, but I was looking for the quickest way to opaque this, because I want this to be pretty black. I don't want you to be able to see through it. So sometimes I can get that quicker with a pouncing technique versus the swirling. But those are the two techniques for applying the paint through your stencil openings, is either pounce or swirl. And I believe on my blog post, I have put a link on there to my stenciling video, which gets in real depth on how to stencil with one color, multiple colors, the dry brush technique. So there's a lot of detailed information on there. Stenciling is something I totally enjoy doing, and I can kind of get lost in this, but it is one of those things where it does take you a while to actually do the stenciling. So what I'm doing to start with is just going over all the openings first, and as I go across the design, the paint's going to dry that fast that I can go back and layer on top of it. And if it doesn't dry that fast, we have a blow dryer, and normally it'll take about 2 layers to get this as dark as I really want it to be. And as I'm stenciling across here, Tyler, is there any other questions I haven't answered?
Not recently.
Do you want me to turn on the light to show?
Yeah, we're going to try turning on the light, and if it glares, we'll turn it right back off. But sometimes we can get a better close-up, or Andy can get a better picture for you guys if we have some light on the subject.
Someone said they just joined. Will we be able to see the entire video later?
Yeah, once I'm completely done with the taping, the video will be posted onto the Hometalk site, and you will be able to start from the very beginning and watch the entire segment. So yes, no problem at all. So, did we have any other countries, Tyler, that people tuned in from?
A lot of people from Ireland,
Oh my gosh,
Iceland, Australia.
that is so awesome. I always forget how big the wide world web truly is, and it reaches so many other countries. So bear with me, guys. I want to stencil out this one and then show you how I double up the color. So putting the second layer on will give us the opacity that I'm looking for, because I want to show you guys how to reposition the stencil. And I'm just doing an eyeball technique. But I believe Hometalk will also have all the links on this thread for my website, my blog site. I know they're going to have the link that is posted on Hometalk that has the complete instructions to the project. So you should be able to find everything. Pretty easy.
Jen, since you'll be picking a winner, would you like to give up some of the entries that we have?
Sure.
Tyler,
Tyler, I think that's for you.
some of the names of the people or entries where they're going to hang their cross?
Oh, a lot of people thought, you know, on wherever they're walking in and out of, so they can see it every day, or a lot of people have cross walls already to add them to it, or add them next to pictures of loved ones.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes, I have a cross wall going. My daughter has a cross wall going. I think at some point in time we're going to get my son with his cross wall going. So once you go across the entire stencil, then all I do is come back to the very first section that I started. And if I do one more layer here, then I'll get that opacity that I'm looking for. And with stenciling, and just kind of like peeking underneath the foils, I love going ahead and pulling up the stencil and checking to see if I make sure I've got it as dark as I want, if I've missed any area, you know, making sure that the detail is exactly what I need. And if it's not, you can just lay that stencil right back into place and continue to work on something if you've missed an area, or like I said, if it's not dark enough. And it's not as important with a single overlay like this, but when you get into some of the more detailed stencils that have multiple overlays, I think peeking underneath is really, really important with this art form. And stenciling is probably one of my favorite things to do. I can just sit here and get lost in this, okay? I could stencil for hours. To me, it's like a brainless activity, okay? But enjoyable. Okay, so I'm pretty much done with this. There's a couple areas that are a little bit lighter, but I'm going to completely remove this and then reposition the cross so that I can get at it better. And then, because you can see through the Mylar, you can position where you want the next area to repeat. So there's no registration marks on something like this. We're just kind of free-forming it for an overall repeat. And then again, just pounce on the paint. So as you can see, from start to finish, this is a pretty quick and easy project that I think anybody could do. The foils are fun to work with. There are tons and tons of different colors. When I'm at the end of this video, I'm not only going to show you the completed cross that we're working on here, but I did a few other little color options, so I'll share those with you also.
Do you use a stiff bristle brush?
The brush that I'm using right now, Tyler's got some great questions over there. You know, sometimes you just go forward because everything is so, you know, familiar to you that you forget to tell everybody what I am using. But it's a stencil brush, so it's a traditional stencil brush. They're round, they got a blunt cut on the end, and they are a stiff bristle. I believe it's pig. I'm not positive on that, but I do believe so. But you do want to use a traditional stencil brush because you're going to get the best results that way, no matter if you're swirling or stippling. And a good brush is definitely worth for that. We put the we put it on Do Not Disturb, but somebody snuck through there. The paint that I'm using on here is the same paint that I base coated in. So it is the DIY paints by Debbie's Design Diary, and it's the same color that I even base coated in. So once you've finished out an area, it's just a matter of moving the stencil around and figuring out your next position. And then again, I'm just kind of moving the tape. And because we're doing a dry brush technique, you can see how quickly this is dry. You don't have to worry about kind of waiting for things to dry, you can move forward pretty quickly. So Tyler, did you have a question for me?
Just kind of reviewing the adhesive early on, was the foil adhesive.
So the foil adhesive, just to go back up just a step here, and I know that you guys, once we're completely done with the video, you'll be able to watch it from the beginning, and I'm sure a lot of those questions will be answered. But the products that we're using here is my foil adhesive. It's under my brand Artsyville, and the silver foil, which is a real bright silver. The foil adhesive, it's a two-part. You can't foil without the adhesive, and you can't, once you have the foil adhesive on, you definitely need something to transfer. So just apply the adhesive, rolling it on, and then allow it to dry to a firm tack, and then you'll be able to transfer the foils. So the last part of this, and I'm going to go ahead and get the final one out. So here's the cross that I completely finished. And the only thing really left to do on here is just drill a hole, and that way you can put up whatever ribbon or string or whatever you want to use to actually hang it. And I think that's going to be the best way to hang. But I think Andy can get a good picture on that. And hopefully we haven't glared things out with the light on. So wanted to share with you guys, like I said, I had a couple of different options that I had done. And here's the other one that I showed you guys how to pounce on the foil. And because the background was still had a lot of the black, I went ahead and stenciled in silver. So these two are, basically almost the same finishes. I just changed the color that I stenciled with. So you've got real strong coverage with the smooth technique, and then the pouncing technique allows you to have, so everybody's asking for the light to come back on. And then there are a couple of other options. I had some fun playing with colors. This one here was done in a gold foil, and the stenciling here is in Modern Masters English Brown, I believe is the color. And Hannah had given me the idea of bronze and gold together, so this was done based on her inspiration. So this is the bronze foil in the background, and I used Modern Masters pale gold. So you could use either a metallic on top of the foils, or the original sample that I did here. This one's actually using the chalk paint, which is going to dry more matte, so you kind of get a shiny and matte finish together.
Someone said it looks like velvet.
They really do. I mean, it gives you a really cool finish. But yeah, there's lots of different options and colors to work with. So I think whatever color palette, whatever works in your house, this would be great. And I think there's something I need to read, Tyler. Oh, okay. Well, this project was pretty quick. And like I said, it is an easy and quick finish to do. And start to finish, I mean, I would say with having to let everything dry, you're probably an hour and a half or less maybe. But I wanted to make sure that you guys hit your subscribe button at the end of this broadcast. That way you'll never miss another Hometalk Live. And be sure to tune in tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, where they're going to be showing you last-minute DIY gifts. And I just want to thank you guys for joining me again. It's been wonderful to have you here, and I look forward to seeing you next time.